Hi, it's Dawn from Dawn's Dirt. Welcome here. As you know, dirt can mean soil, it can mean gardening, it can mean politics, it can mean religion, or anything else under the sun that we want to talk about today. So I am thrilled to have Mike and Eve here from the Green Sheep. Now, I have known Mike for years, and Mike, you are still in my phone as Mike the Worm Guy. So yeah, it's pretty fun, and we've known each other for a long time through the gardening realm, or through the farmers markets, or through different things like that. So farming, agriculture. So welcome here. Could you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So Eve and I are on a new venture called the Green Sheep, which is taking a little bit of stuff from our own backgrounds, where I've been, as you've known me, as the worm dude or the worm guy. Playing around with soil health and all those natural ways of doing that with composting, and we're looking at the biology in the soil and that kind of stuff. So taking that soil health component and then tying it to the stuff that Eve's been doing more on the nutritional side. So soil health and human health, and where's that connection piece? And I'll let Eve speak on a little bit of her background and how that kind of connects into what we're doing these days.
Yeah. So Dawn, a pleasure to meet you today, and thanks for having us here. As Mike alluded to, my background is in holistic nutrition, and I'm also a professional certified coach. So I have a holistic coaching business where I do leadership and empowerment coaching through focusing on the 4 pillars of health. And so Mike and I have had numerous conversations in terms of, that there's a connection there in terms of human health and soil health, and it's full circle. And so if we can bridge that gap and get people to see that it's one and the same, and what are the dots that are connected to that, we can enlighten and open people's minds to a brand new paradigm that has existed for centuries that we've forgotten about. And one thing also to say about the Green Sheep is that our center focus starts with food, because we can all relate to food. We all eat, we all connect through food. And that interconnectedness blends into the soil health and our human health.
Absolutely. I love it. Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
Oh, and especially when the fact that most of us don't even know what food is anymore.
Yeah.
And you're a huge proponent of that as well, right?
And where our food comes from.
Absolutely. Know your farmer. I mean, look at here. I saw on your website, Mike, I actually saw that earlier. Do you see my hat? No farmers, no food.
Yeah.
You said no farmers, no food. And it's so truthful. I've been preaching it for years because I was a farmer. I was a vegetable farmer. I grew food for people. Yeah. So let's talk. How does healthy soil directly impact the nutrient density of our food? And what is the connection often overlooked?
Right. Well, I would say soil health. So soil itself, I think back in the day, used to be looked at as your number one resource. So it was the one thing that you had to have an intimate connection with to make sure that you were able to provide for your family and then your community from there. And now I think it's funny how you ran a greenhouse that was based on hydroponics, but that's kind of like where a lot of our larger scale farming is gone. They're not using soil as the basis of, take care of the soil so the soil will grow the plants. They're just using it as a resource or a base to hold the food in and then feed it through the inputs, right? So that makes a huge difference where if you look at like a forest that is very diverse and it has all these things going, so those plants can eat and get the things that they need 24/7. Where when we look at how we're doing things more conventionally, the plant only gets those big bursts and be able to grab what it can really quick, but then how much of it leaches out of the system. So if you look at diversity of what you're going to get into the plant, I'm going to say, things are going to be a lot more nutrient dense or have more minerals and nutrients pulled into it, as opposed to maybe the conventional stuff where it's very limited on what the plant is receiving, if that makes sense.
Okay, and I've always thought of it differently. I've always thought of it as hydroponics. You're giving the plants the nutrients that they need to grow. And again, in my hydroponic greenhouse, I was growing in cocoa fiber, and I was sending the water sample away, I was getting it back, and I was giving the nutrients that they needed to grow. But my field crops were in the soil in the garden, and I had soil tests done, and they came back really good. And I think there's room for both. And so, yeah, but food is so important, right? Like knowing your farmer, knowing where your food comes from, having it grown in the ground in the garden was really important too, right? I couldn't have made it pencil out in the greenhouse, the cabbages and the, corn and all of that kind of stuff in the field. I had to grow them in the soil in the field. And I was so thankful that I had that soil in the field. And yeah, I don't know. So
I'm going to blend with you guys and say, you asked the question about the soil health and nutrient density. And this is where we see what's as above, so below. So if we look at soil health and we look at it as living, right, there's a microbiome in the soil. We also have a microbiome in our gut, right? So living in the soil, living in us, there's thousands and thousands and millions of different organisms. And so that health comes from our microbiome. The health comes from the soil's microbiome. And I honestly believe, and this is, again, my opinion, that we don't know enough about nutrient density. I think it's new. I think we've attached to something, but we really don't know what that means or what the potential is. And we can measure it and we can analyze it, and there's a place for data, but our connection to the earth, our connection to the soil, our connection to our food, that extra energy, because we're all energy and we operate at a frequency, what is that impact on the food, on the soil? So the farmer being connected to the land, the consumer being connected to the farmer in buying the food. What does that provide us in terms of, and I'm getting goosies because I'm a nerd, but what does that energy provide? And so whether it's grown hydroponically, whether it's grown in the soil, but if it's grown with love versus if we're in a conventional commercial operation where there's stress on the animal, where there's stress on the farmer, because the scope is profits and yields instead of the beauty of creation.
yes.
And so what does that provide us in terms of the density, and what is it that we actually need? I don't have an answer, but I'm like, you know what? This nutrient density stuff doesn't really land for me. It's connection, energy, love, frequency. And I'm going to sound woo-woo, but hey, that's what it's all about.
With this spoken.
And I love it. I love what you're saying, because like when I had my farm, Mike, you saw me at farmers markets. Like I was hugging people and loving on people. And now I'm getting goosebumps. It was the relationship of my food, which I had good food to the customer. And there was more to it, like you're saying, than just, a tomato in your tummy. Like it's the circle, like you're saying. And it's so important to know your farmer. And I personally think the solution to our food issues or hunger globally is the local food system. So where our farmers get smaller rather than bigger, I understand why farmers get bigger. I'm a proponent of agriculture and farming. Like, you're going to save your farm, you have to do that. You're going to fight for it. But like, if we would just take our food system and go smaller, where your dairy farmer and your chicken farmer and your beef farmer and your vegetable farmer, and we eat locally and seasonally, I think that's where it's at with our food system. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. Like, because this is where there's an organization in the States called the Bionutrient Association. And so they've been like the big proponent of testing for nutrient density and what does that look like? And now the director of them, he's saying, we can't use that word anymore because we don't know what it means. Because as Eve was alluding to, they've said, okay, well, what does those nutrient levels look like in a plant? And how much do we actually need? And it's varying from different species, from how it's grown, from, how far has it been shipped. So when it comes down to community, I think for sure that's the way to go, is keep it local, share food together, break bread together, as they say, like, and treat the things like bananas and lemons and stuff that might necessarily grow in our region because we're in the middle of the prairies, but treat that as a treat. So get it every once in a while. And if we're eating a lemon to get vitamin C, well, people in the past were getting vitamin C from what else in our local region? Were they fermenting something that was coming out in the sauerkraut, or were they foraging some kind of plant and making a tea out of it? And that's how they were doing that, right? So I think taking that stress out of it seasonally and locally is the way to go, 100%.
Well, and I was reading, I'm on Instagram, and you know how you get your information there, and not all of it's truthful, but I saw something, Instagram's the only source, just joking. So I was reading or seeing something, and it said spinach, and I think there's truth to this, that spinach has vitamin C, but once it's been picked and out of the soil for so long, it loses all of its vitamin C, and so you lose your nutrients. And I think that's true for all vegetables. And I'm not sure about meat. I don't know a lot about meat other than I like beef. But so what's your thoughts on that? Like, I think fresher is better because you're getting the nutrients, you're getting your vitamin C, you're getting for my produce, when it was a week old, it was old. It was grocery store quality, not my quality. And I food banked it then. Like, it was still really good, but I food banked it then because my standards were through the roof. So what's your thoughts on that?
I would agree with you 100%, Dawn. We know that fresh is better, and real food spoils. Why? Because it's picked at its optimal time, and we should consume it within a certain period of time. If you buy a bag of spinach in the store in a cellophane wrapper and you can keep it in the fridge for 3 weeks, something's not right there. Because if you went to your garden and you picked the spinach and you left it out, how long before you saw it wilt or start to, change its form? So it's denaturing. Anytime anything is packaged or shipped, how does it last? Well, let's look at bananas. We talked about bananas earlier. Bananas are harvested when they're green, and when they're ready to be shipped and ready to ripen, they're actually sprayed with something chemically to enhance the ripening process. Ugh, I don't want anything sprayed on my food to get it to ripen. Tomatoes. How are tomatoes harvested in a large operation? They're red tennis balls.
I know. No, they're not. No, they're not. I grew up in the greenhouse industry. So tomatoes in the large scale greenhouse industry, most growers pick their varieties based on shelf life. So they will pick tomatoes based on how long they will last on the shelf, how I don't know, tough they are really, and they're picked green or really quite green, not compared to like red tomatoes. Whereas my tomatoes, I chose my varieties based on flavor, based on, and they were red. I picked them red, not green.
Right.
So,
and how ripe are they?
When I picked them?
Yes.
Oh, they were red. They were ready to go. So
right.
A soft tomato is actually an old tomato. A tomato gets soft as it's off the plant. So the longer a tomato's off the plant, the softer it's going to get. Whereas, and cucumbers, you were talking about plastic. So people always said, why do you wrap your cucumbers in plastic? And the reason for that is because that cucumber would be a limp noodle within hours of being out of the plastic, right? And so if you can go into your backyard and pick a cucumber off your plant and use it that day, that's where you're going to get the most nutrients, and that's where you're going to connect the most, actually.
Yeah. And so when we're shipping things across provinces, across countries, how do we preserve it? Well, it has to be lots of times irradiated. So that's going on our food, and then we're eating that, right? It's picked not at its optimal, because some things can ripen off the vine like a tomato, but a strawberry can't. Once you pick a strawberry, it's not going to ripen. It's just going to go mushy and yucky, right? And it's going to stay that orangey or that yellowy green. It's not going to ripen further. And so how beautiful is it to go to your garden and pick something and eat it right away versus having something sit, potentially get sprayed, preserved, packaged, dark, no sunlight, no natural energy flow into it, transported, sitting in a warehouse right before you get to enjoy it. There's a denaturing that happens. I don't know it for it to be true, but I feel it. I'm like, ugh. And you can taste the difference. Go to the grocery store and buy a tomato in December or January and buy a tomato that's fresh locally, whether it's grown in a greenhouse or even if you've grown it yourself. There is a difference. There's some sandiness. There's potentially variety has a big impact, right? There's not a ton of variety at a grocery store that you would get from a farmer like yourself that's very selective in what they're picking. But there's a difference. There's a flavor difference. Carrots are another one, right? A carrot grown in beautiful soil tastes so much different than a commercially grown carrot, right? Why is that?
Absolutely. And that's where I can speak to it. A carrot grown in Alberta has had probably frost to it. Mike, you know this too, right? It's had frost on it. It's grown in our soil here. It's going to be sweeter, anything grown south, like, down in the States or Mexico, that soil's different. And so it's not our kind of soil. And it's grown on a large scale and it hasn't had the frost. And so it's not going to be sweet. And back to like produce, you are 100% correct. I grew up in the industry. Cucumbers, my parents picked their cucumbers. They brought them to a warehouse. We actually fortunately brought them the very next day. Sometimes that doesn't happen in the big industry. It goes from the greenhouse to the warehouse, or to the packing house to the warehouse to the grocery store to the shelf. And best case, that produce is a week old. Best case, it's potentially longer than that. And if you think about, how much you're losing over that time, no wonder you're getting that cucumber home from, Walmart. Maybe I shouldn't be saying Walmart on here, but you get this cucumber home from a big grocery store and it goes bad the next day. Like there's no more life in that cucumber.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's completely lost its vitality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's what we're trying to feed ourselves. And then we can get into the middle aisles of the grocery store and call that food. That's
We're just calling it junk now.
Yeah.
Garbage, right? Yeah, absolutely. Okay. How does composting, especially with worm castings, because Mike, you're the worm guy, contribute to the bigger sustainable food picture and even in your own backyards? So what's your thoughts on that, composting and getting nutrients from compost and worm castings and nature?
Yeah. Well, if you look at traditional ways of just doing that closed loop, or we're looking at these full circle solutions, that was the way to go. If you grew something, you either had animal manure or even your own or the waste of that stuff going back into the system again. And, so you became kind of self-sufficient in what you were doing. That has been taken away. And now we're dependent on outside sources to bring that nutrition back to the plant. So if you look, there's a great book called, it's by Dr. John Montgomery. It's called Dirt, the Death of Civilizations. And he talks about all these old school civilizations like the Romans, the Sumerians, the Egyptians, and what took them out in the end. And it was because they treated their soil and overused it and weren't giving back. So they weren't able to feed their people and it was pulled down. So if you look at the Chinese, they're one of the longest lasting empires, if you want to call them that. And if you look at some of the practices that they do in a lot of the villages, they have something where they have a guy called the night soil man, where they will come and collect the poop and the urine from the villagers and apply that back out into the fields. So it's a way for them to give back. So, we're not doing that in our society, but you're seeing composting take a big comeback where we're taking as much waste streams as we possibly can, processing it into a nutrient or an amendment that brings life. So you're bringing microbes back to the soil, which then eclipses back to the microbiome again, but then also nutrients in a form that the plants will be able to use.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you're doing that in the backyard by a static pile or thermophilically, or if you're in a condo and you're using worms, which then they're passing it through their gut system to make the beautiful worm castings, Mother Nature's fertilizer, and putting that back out of the system, it's a really low maintenance way of giving back and completing the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And like on the food waste side, if you want to speak a little bit on that, like we're so over the top with how much waste we throw away. This whole fact of, ooh, do we need to grow more food, or do we just need to use the food that we're growing more efficiently and effectively? So
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how, we talk about giving back. Everything has to go somewhere. And we are spoiled because we outsource so much of that. We are takers, but how much are we giving back? Right? We buy food in larger quantities because we're sold on the idea of a bulk discount, right? So we go to Walmart or Costco. I'm going to get a deal. I'm going to buy bulk. Do we really save money? Because do we really end up using it, or do we throw it away? And we take it off site. So we put it in our compost bin if we're at least doing that. But lots of times it ends up in the trash and it goes to the landfill. What did we used to do? Well, we used to take anything that wasn't eaten by us. We used to give those scraps to our animals, whether it was guardian dogs or our pigs, our goats, or whatever, our animals, our chickens, right? We used to do that. And then if that wasn't a possibility or there was too much, we would compost it on our site, right? We would have it here. And now we send it off. And lots of times people aren't even composting. So it goes to the landfill. I read a stat, and again, temper everything with doing your own research, because like you mentioned earlier, Dawn, I think 90% of what we see is not true. And so if you like something, go do your own research, including what I tell you. But 60% of our food, edible food, is waste. 60%. I also read a stat somewhere through, I don't know, there was a CDC or something that said by 2050, we're going to need 60% more food to be grown to sustain the population. Now, I'm not a math whiz anymore because high school was a long time ago, but 60% of edible food waste and 60% more food, sometimes those numbers, they're not even talking to each other. They're not even taking into account how much food we're wasting. This is edible food. I'm not talking about stuff that we can't eat because it's spoiled or whatever it is, right? Edible food. What are we doing? And so when we talk to people, we like to say, so imagine if you didn't have the garbage and the compost pickup convenience in your community. If you had to throw it all in your backyard, what would it look like after a day, after a week, after a month? How much waste would be in your backyard, right?
yeah.
You don't see it. Out of sight, out of mind. And so how are you giving back? Well, let's look at our waste. How much are you wasting? How much are we giving back in terms of feeding some scraps to our animals, in terms of composting, right? That more self-sufficiency. You live in a condo. Is there a possibility where the neighbors can get together and maybe create a compost pile somewhere? Is there a community garden you can do? Let's be creative and inventive. We're outsourcing not just that, but we've outsourced our critical thinking, and we forget to think outside the box and color outside the lines. What can we do to give back? How can we create a system where we're not just outsourcing that, but we're taking that ownership and control and responsibility back and then feeding nature?
Absolutely. And, really, that all comes back to the whole community thing. See, back when I was growing up, or, even before that, everybody had a garden. Everybody had a couple of chickens. Everybody had a little piece of the food system right in their own spaces. And now there's lots of kids that think carrots grow in the grocery store. And I'll tell you, the best carrot is the one you pull out of the soil. You wipe it off a bit and you don't even get it all and you eat it. Like, that is the best carrot. And so it comes back to community. And when I think of an apartment building, I think, man, this balcony can grow the basil. This balcony can grow the tomatoes. This balcony can grow a zucchini. And you've got this one can maybe grow some onions. And you've got a great, you've got a bit of a food system right in an apartment building even. And that's where I'm headed now. I don't have my farm anymore, which breaks my heart. And it feels like my arm's been ripped off. But I do feel like I'm at the bottom of the next mountain, teaching people how to grow food in the spaces they have, because that's what will bring us back to, like you said, our empire is falling. I believe our empire is falling right now. You can see it, in society before us. And we don't need to get into all that. But anyways, I just think if we grow our food and we share our food and we get back to a simpler system, your beef farmer, even back to farming, like if you have a farmer who has cows and a few chickens and a few, or even just cows and a field, like he's taking his manure and he's putting it back on the field. Like that brings nutrients back in. He needs to put less chemical on that field to get the plants need nutrients to grow, just like we need nutrients to grow. So you got to get them from somewhere. And I think the way to do it is just like you said, Mike, in that cycle, in that round system. And it can be a bigger system where you have a mixed farm, or it can be a smaller system in a backyard or in an apartment building even. So
yeah. And I would say in our area, like, and I believe you've done some stuff with him in the past, like the Kohut Farm. So like they've created a really cool little system where they're working with as much of the local farmers in the area to, okay, we can help promote your food and find customers for you, but then also helping with growing feed for the local animals and stuff too. And then, using more of those mixed farm systems like that all has to be brought back, right? Like instead of just very segregation between ranchers hating croppers and or not hating, but having a bit of misunderstanding, right?
Yes. And the one farmer saying, I'm the only way, and the other one saying, I'm the only way, and the other one saying, I'm the only way. I think we need choice, freedom of choice. If you want grass-fed beef, you eat grass-fed beef. If you want grain-finished beef, you eat grain-finished beef. Like it's both the freedom of choice and the freedom of knowing your farmer and bringing that system smaller again. And I think that's where it's at. We all need to get together and play in the sandbox nicely instead of pointing our fingers to someone else and saying, I'm right and you're wrong. I don't know, like, about the community, really.
Yeah. And on that, Dawn, then if somebody approaches you, are you working with somebody on kind of from small scale working in that balcony up to more of a farm scale, or what does that look like for you?
Absolutely. So I can take someone in their balcony and we can do and get the most production out of their little balcony, right up to, I had a 36,000 square foot greenhouse with 15 acres of garden. Like I know how to do that. I know how to grow vegetables. Like I was good at it. The part there was, bureaucracy that killed me, but that's part of a bigger picture, right? It was the wholesale system that really killed me because I didn't get bigger. I didn't get my farm bigger and bigger and bigger fast enough, and so I was really relying only on a small scale. And then we can get into the bureaucracy around that, competing at farmers markets against tomatoes that were bought and sold from the biggest warehouse in the province, and had a hand in putting me out of business. So when you're shopping at a farmer's market, make sure you know that they are the farmer. Like I was the farmer. I grew the food. Like it's so important.
Well, and I'm glad you said that because I think the definition of what a farmer's market is has changed as well. Like you look at some of these ones that are farmers markets, where we were doing the Sunnyside Hillhurst stuff, you're setting up tents and, you are getting more of that kind of local feel. It is the farmer coming and selling their wares. When you're going to some of these establishments that are in big fancy buildings and it looks like a posh grocery store and it's more food vendors selling prepped food, like a concession or a fast food restaurant, like that's not what we're looking for anymore.
I think it's really greenwashed, actually. We're changing the language. We're conditioning people. I would say not we, but the global we of like larger agenda scale of like the greenwashing is happening. And we were just in the States. We were at a conference in Florida and we went to Whole Foods. We went to another health related store called Sprouts. And we were looking to buy some food, some regeneratively grown food, right? Healthy, locally grown food. We were in Florida. We're thinking there's going to be stuff grown here all the time. And we were shocked. I was shocked. I'll speak to myself at the greenwashing of you have a sign that here says farmed food or farming, right? And then you look underneath it. It's from New Zealand. It's from South Africa. What? that's not from a farm. Like, locally grown. What? And I'm thinking, this is greenwashing. Who's looking at this? They're not scrutinizing like us because this is our life and our passion. I'm like, this is misleading. Like, I'm not buying this. And we actually left the store because we couldn't find anything local. And it said farm fresh, organic, regeneratively grown. And all the meat regeneratively grown was that store's brand. You didn't know who the farmer was. I'm like, you don't have a farm. I want to know who. We were pumped up because we were at a conference that was telling us that this farmer has his food in these stores. We couldn't find it. We're like, where are they putting it? They're relabeling it? Like, what? That's a disconnection for me. No. And so the greenwashing is real. People are confused and don't know. We're still going to do a podcast and a blog of our own on like the different levels of eggs. We were in Sunterra the other day and we saw eggs from one brand. I don't know why eggs are branded. This branding of food is just another tangent for me, but it's free run, free range, grain. Like there was 5 different levels. And I'm like, I don't think I know what these 5 are. If I don't know, how can I help educate other people? They must not know. Do they care? I care. I want to know what the difference is. And it goes up by 50 cents to 75 cents. So you have this range of cost and then you turn it around and it's the same packaging company. And you're like, huh, is this real?
You are just like, I'm vibrating right now because you're speaking my language and speaking what you're putting into words, honestly, what I have felt over the last 17 years that I was farming on my own and I was born into it. Like I would go to a restaurant and someone would say, it's about words like local. It's all buzzwords and it's to put lipstick on a fucking pig, pardon my language, to say like they're using the right buzzword, but you're not getting what you're getting. And so if I went to a restaurant and they said local farm fresh eggs, I would honestly, I would go to the waitress and I'd be like, who is the farmer? Or if they said local greens, I would say, who is the farmer? Can you tell me their name and how are they raised? Like if you're going to use the advertising, like practice what you're preaching. Like instead of this, and like you said, to the big building farmers markets, I know of a big building farmers market and there is only one vendor in that building that sells produce that actually grows the produce themselves. 100% of the rest of the produce in that building is bought and sold in some capacity, right? You might know of the farmer, you might know the farmer, but it has been raised by the farmer, sold, marked up, and then sold again, right? So that is where our system breakdown is, and that is actually where food pricing is going up, is because the farmer is selling at a low rate to somebody who marks it up, the warehouse, to somebody, the grocery store, who marks it up, and that's the problem. And then the problem comes in too when you're the farmer and you've got it at that higher rate, but you can't compete, and it's still not even penciling out. And next thing you know, boom, you have to sell the farm because you were short $100,000 last year.
Crazy. And Dawn, you just made a wonderful case for why you should buy your food from the farmer. Get rid of the distribution chain, know your farmer, buy direct from the farmer. Food security, right? Food sovereignty. If you're not doing it yourself, you're buying it directly from the farmer because the farmer is getting screwed in that deal.
Absolutely. And this is what I have been preaching for the last however many years. And during the pandemic, and I don't know where you all fall, but I know where I fall. It's a little timid. Yeah. With the pandemic, and this is where my heart hurts so much in selling my farm, is because I had people coming to me. We had the toilet paper wars in COVID and people were worried about where they were going to get their food. And I had people honestly coming to me and saying, you have food, right? And I'd say, yes, I have food. Come to me, come to my farm. I'll feed the people. And so that's where I'm feeling lost a bit at this moment because I don't have my farm. I can't feed the people. I can't help the people. It's just, there's no longer the relationship with the food there, except that I can come and have this glimmer of hope in teaching people how to grow food in their backyards. Because when I hear of a mom who says, my daughter grew the carrots, one of my clients this year, my daughter grew a carrot and she pulled it out of the soil, and she was so proud, and she showed her friend, and she said, I grew this carrot. We need to get back to that, where everybody has something in their backyards, and then you're growing what you can, you trade, and you help people. I saw a zucchini. I was in Kelowna, and I saw a big zucchini sitting on it was on a box of some type, just in the middle of the street almost. And when we came back through, the zucchini was gone. And I thought, that is community. That is food system, where you have what you need, you take what you need, and you give back the rest. That's where we need to get back to, where it's not such a self-centered me society, to community. And yeah.
You know what, Dawn, you're talking about like abundance versus scarcity mindset, right? It's totally, there's abundance. There's enough for everybody. We just have to shift the way we think. And you're talking about being a farmer, and I know how important that is to you. And I would say you still are a farmer, and you are not feeding us with food. You are now feeding us with knowledge, and you're feeding your clients with the skill you have. So it's a different feeding. You're feeding the brain, but you're also feeding their souls and their bellies by giving them the information that they can feel empowered to do it themselves.
Yeah, the confidence.
The confidence. And that's what we're doing as well, right? We're not farmers yet. We're aspiring homestead farmers, but we have the knowledge, and we're going to be feeding people the knowledge that if they want it. And so with, what the work that we're doing with food education and connecting people with food, and Mike's specializing in soil health and I'm specializing in the human health, we've got those personalized aspects. And now we've got you to leverage. You want to know more about that? Well, we've got Dawn. Dawn can come to your place and help you, coach you on a garden, right? I can coach you on the health side. Mike can coach you on the compost and soil side. So we're building our community, and we're going to feed the world through knowledge. Then they can feel empowered to feed themselves through real food.
Absolutely. And you're just making me cry. Thanks a lot. I was going to cry this morning, but this is...
Well, either you or me, and then you went first, so...
It's a beautiful conversation, and you're exactly... the word community keeps coming up over and over and over. And like you said in the beginning, it's the full circle, the soil and the health and the nutrients and the, just around and around and around. And that's what we're doing right now. We're closing the loop. We're making,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, I got lucky last year. I was able to travel around a bunch of the provinces and interview a bunch of farmers. And it was all to go in to kind of chat about, regenerative practices and how they're operating their farm or their ranch. And every single conversation came back around to the community piece again. So that's that social part that we're missing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, by doing more of this, we give people that self-resilience, but then we start connecting the dots and connecting the people and connecting the organizations. And we get to grow self-resilience as a community then. And then those little hubs get to share with the other hubs as they build too. And it is a beautiful thing. I'm getting excited.
Well, and it's the relationship. I feel like with our phones, we have all these phones and we're online and we're, scrolling through Instagram and things like that. But that's not community. That's seeing a small snippet of someone's life. That's seeing you're not engaged. Back 100 years ago, you had a little town and you had a little church and you had a little store and you crossed paths. And when someone needed something, you stepped up. And when, they needed something, you stepped up. That's where we need to get back to, because how often right now are you living in your town or your community or your city and you don't even know your neighbors? You don't even say hello anymore. Like when I walk through town, I say, hello. I'm not shy, right? Yeah, exactly. Right. So yeah, it's all a bigger picture connected to food. And then when you're feeding your soul with people, you're feeding, you need the nutrients, you need the community. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, 100%. You hit the nail on the head in terms of connection and community. And it doesn't happen through devices. There's nothing social about those. It's just media. It's turning us into little droney robots, and it's not connection at all. Connection happens through conversation. Connection happens through slowing down. Connection happens through feeling and listening. And we've overcomplicated our lives, and we've made ourselves too busy. We need to slow down and make it simple. And that's not easy. Simple is not by any means easy, but simple is the eye contact, the smiling, the saying hello. We are energetic beings, and our energy is felt before we even see people. But we've lost that because our devices have messed with our biofield, right? I do energy work through tuning forks, sound healing stuff. We are made of frequency and energy. And when we have all these inputs coming in from all this technology, that all gets scrambled, right? We don't get to feel each other's energy. Words are 30%, give or take, of communication. The rest is body language, facial expression, tone. When you make eye contact with someone, you can feel what they're feeling. The words are a part of it, right? You can feel it, but we're too busy to think the next thing. We're not listening. We're not letting it absorb, right? Our scroll fingers, we're just going through. It's like not even a second of attention span. Like, of course you can't feel anything. We don't have the ability to articulate emotion. And that's that loss of connection with people, with food, with the earth, and therefore with the farmer, right? But if we just slow down and connect again, what's possible there? That's what I'm really excited about, is that like data has a place, and the technology is a beautiful tool, but that is the tool that we get to use. In turn, it's now become that we're the tools.
Yeah.
We're the user and the experiment, right? If we use that to our advantage, but what if you didn't think so much about the data, so much about the science, but you actually put your hands in the soil, and you actually went outside and felt the sun on your face, and you connected to the land, and you picked up whatever you grew, or you connected with your livestock, and you were like, what's my body telling me? Let's go from the shoulders down this time, and let's tune in with the heart and the gut. I don't know. I feel like I'm doing the right thing here. My agronomist is saying to do this. I don't know. It doesn't feel right. Listen to that gut feeling. Follow your heart, right? We don't say, my brain told me this, therefore I got to do it. We say, I don't know, my heart's not in it. I got a bad gut feeling about this. Oh, you know why? Because we are intuitive beings. We are not robots. We need to feel. We need to embody. We need to understand what's happening now, here in the heart. I'm feeling really awesome about this conversation today. I could tell you, I'm really excited, right? And I don't care about other stuff right now. That's being present and connected.
I would love to just add to that too. It's sometimes the word authenticity gets thrown around, but we're in a feel-good society where you're not allowed to say something that ruffles the feathers. You're not allowed to say something that might, whereas I feel like the deep connections and the deep conversations and the depth of whatever, that's important too in relationship and all of this. I know I've been blocked from certain sites because I'm speaking the truth about agriculture and farming, and what it is people just don't want to hear it. These entities that are doing this fluffy lipstick on a pig stuff, they just don't want to hear the truth. And I'm speaking the truth about farming and agriculture, and it's not being well received, right? And so that's part of it too, is having authentic, genuine conversations saying this is really hard, or that's really hard, or this is right, or this is wrong. And how can we do that? I don't know. Like it's not just a shallow thing. Connection is a deeper level thing in your tummy, in your heart, in things like that.
Yeah.
And that's where I see the device is almost a distraction and a division from that. Because if we're going to have this conversation and we don't have the same opinions to it, or we don't agree, that's okay. We're able to have that conversation, but it's going to be easier for me and you to look each other in the eye and have that disagreement and then be okay with it. But when you're disconnected and you're just typing something or whatever, it takes that awkward feeling or standing your ground into that and looking that person in the eye. So it's a way easier to get away with that. We're seeing that with just how the kids talk to each other and stuff on it. Like there's no remorse from that. And like so we got a chance to butcher some pigs with 10 people in our community this weekend. And what a way to get to know some people. And again, we're not all on the same page on things either, but what a way to spend intimate time together to help each other, again, around food in a task that not everybody can do, because that's very hard to take an animal's life. But then to have that intimate connection of knowing, whoa, those pigs were treated really well, and we do have to eat some good food. So we're going to make sure that we are very thankful and show a lot of gratitude to these animals' lives. And then to do that with a community that we're just getting that much more involved with. Whoa, did that just go, I'm so glad we're going to make this move to this group. Like that's the draw.
Yeah, I love that. And you touched on not agreeing with someone. Some of my favorite people. So one thing I going to the farmers markets, maybe politically I wasn't on the same page as some people, or maybe in different ways I wasn't on, but some of my very favorite people were very different than me. And when you get to know someone on a friendship level or an intimate level with conversation, relationship, it's easier to meet someone and say, I can hear what you're saying. I understand. And I may not agree with you, but like this is my viewpoint. This is your viewpoint, but I love you anyway. Like,
yeah.
How can we compromise? How can we meet in the middle? How can we do life together? Just like you said with the pigs. And I love that you're butchering to pigs on a farm. Like that's amazing. So yeah, and that pork is going to be the best pork you've ever ate, because I'm sure that I'm positive that those pigs did not suffer. They were probably happy 1 minute and
one bad day,
one bad moment. Yeah, and they wouldn't even know it. And yeah, that's the way food is. I know we butchered. We over the years I've had I've raised pigs and I've had a steer and and the best meat was the one where the guy came straight to the farm. The cow was eating or the steer was eating and didn't know what hit them. And yeah, that's where food's at. That's what we need more of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And talk about being connected to your food, right? That's huge connection. And one of our friends had said this, and this is something that I've now borrowed from him. It's the beauty in sitting down for dinner and looking at your plate.
There you go. Now it's your turn. Looking at your plate and saying, we butchered this pig.
And we got this tomato from Dawn. And we grew these potatoes. And having that meal versus not even going there. Like just sitting down, peeling back the foil and eating and scarfing the dinner while being on your phone. Like, what a difference, right?
Yeah.
To know where your food came from, to know the person, and to have even contributed and grown it yourself. Like that, like forget nutrient density, like that. I want that every meal.
Right. And you're giving me goosebumps head to toe now, because with that meal, you're knowing your farmer, you're knowing where that pig came from. But even further than that, you're sitting at a table without a device with people that you love and care about, and your family and your friends and your neighbors. And it's about the relationship and connection. And that is the full circle. And wow, that is a whole bunch of goosebumps.
Yeah. And how nourishing is just that?
Yes.
Don't even have the food, right? Like just that right there too.
That is more than worm castings or fertilizer combined. It's bigger. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Oh, wow. That is some deep conversation. I'm loving this. How can a return to home gardening help us cut through conflicting media messages about food and health?
Oh, that one's so easy. You take ownership and control. It's you.
Self-resiliency.
Yeah. It's self-responsibility, personal ownership, and accountability. You do it, you've got your freedom.
Yeah.
No one gets to tell you what to do, right?
Absolutely.
Well, everything else is noise. That's the short answer.
And And I would say that that's an innate skill set that every single person should know how to do, at least the basics of it. Like,
what just came to mind is, we have these sort of made up biases or beliefs of like, what does it mean like to be self-sufficient, or like, oh, you should know how to change a tire. You should know how to change a lock, or how to like whatever. But
oil change.
You know what? I followed this guy a long time ago, and he always said, can you grow a fucking tomato? If you don't know how to grow a fucking tomato, you don't know anything. Take a seed and grow a tomato and produce a fruit. That's a skill set. Can you grow some food, right? Everyone should know how to do that. Something, grow something.
Well, and that's where the freedom comes in, right? Because if you can grow something in the space that you have, that's the freedom to be able to take a small package of seeds that doesn't cost very much, or even save your own seeds, right? And put it in the ground and grow something big. And can you imagine the dollars you save by just growing the tomato?
Right?
Like, I know what I charged for my produce, and it wasn't cheap. It was good, but it wasn't cheap. And so that's the thing. Like, that was one of my biggest fears, actually, moving off the farm. And I'm thankful to land where I landed, is if I had to feed my family, if I was fully responsible, I could not rely on any outsourcing to feed my family, what would we eat? And that was one of my honest to goodness fears moving from the farm. And so thankfully I landed here in the country, and I've got some chickens, and I have a mini pig, but she's just a pet. We're not going to eat her. But I would if I had to, because I'm not animals, right? Like, they're there for us to, anyways. So I've got some space here. And I'm always planning, like, if the grocery store stopped, and that's where it comes back to, is what would people do if the grocery store stopped? If that big, massive freight train of a system, if you want to call it, but it's just it's almost turning into a dictatorship, because this is what you eat. And that's what I've been calling out for probably about 10 years now, even pre-pandemic, was, in the name of health and safety, in the name of whatever, we're going to see our big farms getting bigger, and we're going to see our small farms getting punted out. And that's what we're seeing. And what are people going to eat? It's going to be a dictatorship. And when it comes to a dictatorship, can you imagine? Food prices are bad now. Can you imagine what they'll be when this is your choice and that's what you have to eat? So it's food sovereignty and taking your food into your own hands.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keeping it alive.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. With more people feeling restless about their health and what they're being told about their food, what role do you think growing a garden and buying directly from farmers can have on their health? Because we've been talking about all of this. Let's just kind of have some wrap up kind of thought here. So
that's a great question.
Yeah, I would say it probably has a lot to do with it, because if you look at who tells us about our health, looking at the regular medical establishment, they don't know anything about nutrition.
Yeah.
So why are we putting so much time and energy into what they have to say?
Mm-hmm.
And if you go into these old adages that food is thy medicine, and we're made out of cells, if those are even real now, and all these other things, because some of these other doctors are blowing my mind with what's real or what's not anymore. And our food is supposed to make this body. Well, then, of course, whatever you put in it, if it's high quality and you know where it's coming from, it's going to grow the best body that it could possibly can. But if you're eating crap, it's not going to make the best things that it needs to do for the body. So
totally,
I'd say it's everything.
Absolutely. And you said the thing that I wanted to say, and that is, I, long time ago, was a firm believer that food is our medicine, right? And when I coach people on, whether it's their own personal leadership, empowerment, spiritual journeys, whatever it is, we talk about the 4 pillars of health: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And in the physical realm, it's food, right? Food, we eat so much, and our minds are going and our bodies are going, and we create these bodies through the food that we eat. And so our health, whatever that means to every person, is affected by all of those inputs. It's food, it's community, right? It's relationships, it's understanding the emotions, it's knowing your purpose. Right, Dawn, you're a farmer. You're a farmer through and through, and that's your purpose. and you're feeding the world, like I said earlier, now through knowledge, and it'll be food again. I know it. I can feel it. It's going to be food again. But connecting in that way and taking full ownership and responsibility for yourself. Don't outsource that to anyone. You are in control of you. And if you believe in freedom, you have free choice, you have free will, and the people around you should respect that as well. And when you have that, we've got health.
I have so thoroughly loved this conversation. It is so deep, and I love how you have your 4 pillars, and we have in this conversation touched on those 4 pillars. For me, I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus and I believe in God, and that's the spiritual side for me. And we've been given creation, which is our bodies, which is our food, which is our soil, which is our worm castings, which is, and we have, it's all together, mixed together. And yeah, I love what you guys are doing. I love what you stand for. I love this conversation. Thank you so much. And yeah, this has been, goosebumpy.
Yeah. Well, this will not be the last time we speak. Let's just leave that.
I agree. Yeah, like this is the beginning. This is the beginning of a movement, and we're speaking the truth. So,
yeah,
truth tellers, love it. So,
Our people
joining me, absolutely. So, and the freedom. So thanks so much for chatting today. I love you both. I just, thank you so much for coming on today. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, our pleasure. Thank you,
for having
Don.
us.
Yeah, thank you. Perfect.
Have a great day.
You too.